Good morning. Today is Thursday, April 23rd. I want to talk to you today about that person that you're having to live with in a whole new way. He or she may have appeared to have been very organized before all this period of isolation. They may have thought themselves to be very sufficient and very capable and maybe even a little noble. But now the truth is being revealed. They aren't nearly as wonderful as they thought they were. They might even be a little annoying. They might be hard to live with. And certainly they're not as patient as they thought that they were. I'm talking, of course, about you, that self that has emerged in a closed-up house. In the musical Man of La Mancha, one of my favorites, the hero Don Quixote was indeed confident and noble, perhaps the noblest of characters. He was very focused in his mission until his enemies came along and confronted him with the truth. They forced him to look into a mirror. And when he looked into the mirror, he saw a worn out looking, tired looking old man. Not too unlike what I look at every morning when I look in the mirror for the first time. Self can be hard to live with. Self is often harder in a personal analysis than others are. But we learn to hide from self. We hide by burying ourselves in work. We hide by always being busy with kids. We hide by having something to do and never stopping to look into that painful mirror. And we may have discovered that one of the things that we have been best at is running away from ourselves. We actually need to look into the mirror. We need to see ourselves as others see us, and we need to see ourselves certainly as God sees us. We need to know about the flaws and the failings. We need to see those things not in order to beat ourselves up, but so that we might make correction. And after all, what is repentance but the realization that something in us needs to change? What's the purpose of us being born again if not to overcome the previous self? And that's what Jesus offered. When the woman at the well looked into her mirror, she knew that something had to change. So Jesus told her who he was. When Nicodemus came to Jesus at night, he evidently had glimpsed into his own personal mirror, and he knew that he needed something. So Jesus taught him about the new birth. When Saul of Tarsus was struck down on that road to Damascus, he was being forced to look into his own mirror. So Jesus gave him the instructions that would lead him to a whole new life. When later that same man, now known as Paul the Apostle, wrote to the Roman Christians, he reminded them of their own encounters with their own truth. They had each come to this newness by allowing their old lives to die, to be buried in baptism, and to walk in a newness of life. A few chapters later in that same book, he wrote about the process of being transformed by the renewing of the mind. Jesus himself, in the book of John, said, "I have come that you might have life and have it more abundantly." Over and over in the New Testament, we see these teachings and the individuals who were led to follow those teachings to this newness of life. It's really what the Christian ideal is all about. It is a daily do-over. It is an opportunity to start afresh. No matter where we are, God gives us that opportunity, always on a daily basis. The noble creatures that each of us want to be don't come from busyness. They don't come from being buried in our work. They don't come from having every moment of every day spoken for. Those Christ-like, noble, focused people that we want to be come out of an experience of being forced to look into a mirror and see who they really are. Have you discovered that that self that lives in your house is kind of hard to live with? Have you discovered that that self may have some character flaws? I wonder if that self needs to look into his or her own eye to get the log out of the eye before they can see the speck that is in someone else's. Does that self need to make some changes? Along with the time that has allowed you to look into that mirror comes the time to do something about it. The very worst thing that could happen when all of this is over, that we each return to be exactly who we were before. This is a time to learn. It's a time to do an honest evaluation. It's a time to allow ourselves to be remade into the image of God. Honestly, it's time for each of us to look into our own personal mirrors. I hope you'll go and have a great day. Bye.